Listen up, because this isn't your grandma's Sunday sermon. We're talking about walking in the Spirit, not crawling, not stumbling, but walking like you know who's got your back. If you want a life that shakes the ground and rattles the gates of hell, you need these 5 habits burned into your bones. Let's go. Most people treat prayer like a fire extinguisher. Break glass in case of emergency. But walking in the Spirit doesn't work like that. If prayer is only something you run to when you're desperate, you're not living in the Spirit, you're living on fumes. Prayer isn't an accessory you tack on to look holy. It's the oxygen line to the presence of God. You don't wait to run out of air before you breathe. You breathe to stay alive. And if you want to walk in the Spirit, you have to pray to stay alive. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally. This isn't about polished, fancy prayers either. The problem today is too many people think they need to sound perfect when they pray. They think they have to impress God, like he's checking grammar or style points. Forget that. God doesn't care how elegant your words are. He cares how honest they are. You want to walk in the Spirit. You've got to pray raw. You've got to pray real. You've got to pray like you believe God actually listens, actually cares, and actually moves. That means you bring him your joy, your fear, your anger, your confusion, all of it. Don't just throw him the highlight reel. He already knows the behind-the-scenes mess. When you pray, you're not informing God of your problems. You're inviting him into them. You're not sending up a formal request. You're declaring dependence. That's what walking in the Spirit is all about. It's about knowing you can't do it on your own, so you keep running back to the one who can. Prayer isn't weakness, it's power. It's how you tap into the strength that's way beyond your own strength. But sooner or later, you'll hit the wall. And when you hit the wall, you'll realize it was never about your strength to begin with. Real prayer is a conversation, not a monologue. Stop just dumping a list of demands and walking away. Take time to listen. Sit in the quiet. Let God speak back. We live in a world addicted to noise. Constant scrolling, constant stimulation, but the Spirit moves in stillness. If you never get quiet, you'll never hear him. So yeah, pray passionately, pray loudly when you need to, but also learn to shut up and listen. That's where power is born, in the quiet places where the Spirit whispers to the depths of your soul. Another thing, stop thinking you only need to pray when things go wrong. That's spiritual immaturity. A warrior trains in peacetime, not just on the battlefield. If the only time you pray is when you're in crisis, don't be surprised when you keep living from crisis to crisis. You want to live steady, grounded, anchored in the Spirit? Make prayer a habit in the mundane, in the ordinary, in the everyday grind. Thank God when things are good. Seek him when things are calm. Build the muscle before the storm hits. That's how you walk in the Spirit without stumbling every time life punches you in the face. Walking in the Spirit means you've decided prayer isn't a backup plan, it's the game plan. It's not your last resort, it's your first move. It's not just what you do when you're desperate, it's the foundation under your feet every single day. So whether you're on the mountaintop or in the valley, whether you're celebrating or barely hanging on, pray like you breathe. Pray like you can't live without him. Because you can. And when you live like that, when you pray like that, you don't just survive. You walk in power, you walk in clarity, you walk in peace. That's how you walk in the Spirit, and that's how you change your world. If you want, I can also expand the other keynotes or help shape this into a full speech. Want me to prepare that? Absolutely. Here's an expanded version combining 2 keynotes. Pray like it's oxygen, not an accessory, and kill comfort before comfort kills you into a 600-word block, written in a sharp, edgy style without headings. Most people stumble in their walk with God not because they're bad or unworthy, but because they're spiritually starved and too comfortable to notice. We live in a culture that feeds us constant comfort, but leaves us spiritually anemic. We've got convenience at our fingertips, but our souls are bored, restless, and weak. You can't walk in the Spirit if you're addicted to comfort. Comfort will lull you to sleep, but the Spirit will wake you up and set you on fire. You have to be willing to break out of the bubble. If you keep chasing what's easy, you will miss what's eternal. Comfort doesn't build warriors, it builds spectators. And God isn't calling you to sit in the bleachers. He's calling you to step onto the battlefield. When you fast, when you sacrifice, when you push past what's easy and into what's hard, something happens in your spirit. The flesh screams, but the spirit grows strong. Most people avoid discomfort like it's a disease, but in the kingdom of God, discomfort is where transformation happens. You don't grow in the places where you feel safe. You grow in the places where you feel stretched. So you've got to start saying no to the things that numb you and yes to the things that shape you. That means sometimes you walk away from the extra hour of sleep to pray. That means sometimes you put down the phone and pick up the word. That means sometimes you give when it costs, you love when it's inconvenient, you obey when it's uncomfortable. Because when you break agreement with comfort, you make room for the Spirit to move. And prayer is the engine behind all of this. Prayer isn't what you do after you've white-knuckled your way through. Prayer is what keeps you moving in the first place. If you only pray when you're desperate, you're living on spiritual fumes. You're walking around disconnected from the very source of power that's meant to sustain you. Prayer has to become like oxygen, constant, essential, automatic. And I'm not talking about polished prayers that sound good in a room full of people. I'm talking about gut-level, desperate, real prayers that come from the deepest places inside you. God doesn't need your performance. He wants your honesty. He wants you to come messy, come raw, come real. Because prayer isn't about impressing God, it's about inviting Him into the very places you can't fix. The enemy would love nothing more than to keep you comfortable and silent, because a comfortable Christian who doesn't pray is no threat to darkness. But the moment you start praying like you mean it and pushing past the things that keep you numb, you become dangerous. You stop living small, you stop bowing to your moods, you stop running in circles, you step into the kind of life where the Spirit leads and you follow no matter the cost. And here's the thing, the cost is always worth it. Every sacrifice sharpens your spirit. Every prayer lifts your eyes. Every act of obedience chips away at the chains that hold you back. But you have to choose it. God won't force you into transformation. He invites you, He calls you, and He waits for you to say yes. So if you want to walk in the Spirit, you have to pray like your life depends on it, because it does. And you have to kill the grip of comfort before comfort kills the fire inside you. This is where the real change happens. Not in the hype, not in the crowd, but in the quiet moments when you choose God over ease, when you choose prayer over distraction, when you choose to press in when everything in you wants to pull back. That's the path, that's the cost, and that's the life worth living. If you'd like, I can help expand this into the other keynotes or draft the full speech. Want me to get that ready for you? Absolutely. Here's an expanded version combining 3 keynotes. Pray like it's oxygen, not an accessory. Kill comfort before comfort kills you. And fight your battles in worship. Into about 600 words written in a raw, punchy style without headings. Most people are living half awake, walking through life like spiritual sleepwalkers, and they wonder why they can't hear God or feel His power. It's because they built their lives around comfort, distraction, and control. Walking in the Spirit is not for the passive or the numb. It's for the ones who are hungry enough to leave the shallow end, step out into deep waters, and trust that God will hold them up. If you want to walk in the Spirit, you have to decide that comfort will no longer be your master. You have to be willing to break up with ease and step into places that stretch you, challenge you, and cost you something. Fasting, sacrifice, uncomfortable obedience. These things don't come naturally, but they build the kind of soul God can fill. Comfort dulls you, but surrender sharpens you. You will never discover the full power of God while clinging to what's safe. But it's not just about doing hard things, it's about living from the right power source. That's where prayer comes in. Most people treat prayer like a spare tire, only pulling it out when they're stranded. But real, Spirit-filled people know prayer is the engine, not the backup plan. You pray not just to survive the storm, but to build a life that can stand in it. And you don't need polished words or religious formula. You need raw, desperate, honest conversation with God. You cry out when you're broken. You whisper when you're weary. You shout when you're victorious. Prayer keeps you grounded when life shakes you, and it keeps you humble when life elevates you. Without prayer, you are just managing appearances. With prayer, you are connected to the only one who can change the heart, shift the atmosphere, and break chains you can't even see. And when the battles come, and they will come, you don't just fight back with strategy or strength. You fight back with worship. Worship is not the pretty songs we sing in church to fill time. Worship is war. It's defiance in the face of fear. It's raising your hands when you feel heavy. It's lifting your voice when you feel defeated. It's declaring the goodness of God even when your circumstances are falling apart. The world tells you to panic. The flesh tells you to hide. The Spirit calls you to worship. Because when you worship, you remind your soul who is king. You remind the darkness that it doesn't win. You remind yourself that the battle belongs to the Lord. Worship breaks chains you didn't even know were wrapped around you. It shifts the atmosphere inside you and around you. It lifts your head when life tries to bow you down. Comfort will tell you to stay quiet. Fear will tell you to back down. Distraction will tell you to settle. But the Spirit calls you higher. And you access that higher life through a rhythm of prayer, a rejection of comfort, and a lifestyle of worship. That's where the transformation happens. Not when you have it all figured out, but when you get honest, when you get desperate, when you get loud in your praise and real in your surrender. This is not a path for the timid, but if you want to walk in the Spirit, if you want to live a life that carries weight in the unseen world, then you've got to be willing to pray like you breathe, break up with comfort, and fight every battle on your knees and with your hands lifted high. That's where real power lives. And that's where God shows up and does what only He can do. If you like, I can also combine all 5 keynotes into a full-length speech. Want me to draft that next? Absolutely. Here's an expanded version combining 4 keynotes. Pray like it's oxygen, not an accessory. Kill comfort before comfort kills you. Fight your battles in worship and walk in community, not isolation. Into about 600 words, keeping the tone raw, bold, and punchy without headings. Most people want to walk in the Spirit, but they're dragging themselves through life disconnected, distracted, and defeated because they've missed the foundation. You can't walk in the Spirit when you only run to God as a last resort. Prayer has to become as natural as breathing. It's not just what you do when everything falls apart. It's the lifeline that keeps you steady no matter what's going on. Real prayer isn't polished or impressive. It's honest, desperate, and daily. God isn't waiting for fancy words. He's waiting for your heart. Prayer plugs you into the power source. And when you're plugged in, you're no longer scrambling for strength on your own. It becomes your rhythm, your refuge, your lifeblood. Without it, you're running on empty. With it, you're dangerous to the darkness. But prayer alone won't carry you if you're still clinging to comfort. The truth is, most people are addicted to easy. We love convenience, we love safety, and we hate discomfort. But you cannot live a Spirit-led life if you're always trying to avoid hard things. Growth happens where comfort dies. When you fast, when you give sacrificially, when you step out in faith even when you're afraid, you push past the shallow life and into the deep end of God's presence. The Spirit meets you when you're stretched, when you're uncomfortable, when you're out of your depth and fully dependent on Him. If you're constantly seeking the path of least resistance, don't be surprised when you live with the least amount of power. Kill comfort before it kills the fire God wants to ignite in you. And when the battle hits, and it will, you better know how to fight back. But here's the twist. In the kingdom of God, you don't fight the way the world fights. You fight through worship. Worship isn't just the warm-up to the sermon. It's how you put your foot on the neck of fear. It's how you lift your head in the storm. When you worship, you shift your eyes off the problem and onto the God who already won the victory. Chains break when you praise. Atmospheres change when you praise. Your own heart softens when you praise. It's not about singing pretty songs. It's about releasing the power of heaven into your situation. Worship is war, and when you learn to wield it, you become unstoppable in the Spirit. But none of this was ever meant to be walked out alone. Too many people are trying to be lone wolf Christians, wondering why they keep falling into the same pits. You can't walk in the Spirit without walking in community. Isolation is a setup for failure. God designed us to sharpen each other, to lift each other up, to call each other higher. If you want to grow, You need people who aren't impressed by your excuses. People who speak truth even when it stings. People who pull you back when you drift and push you forward when you stall. Community is where God shapes you, humbles you, and strengthens you. It's where you practice forgiveness, grace, and accountability. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it's holy. And it's absolutely essential if you want to walk in the Spirit. So if you're serious about this life, if you're tired of the shallow, powerless version of faith, then it's time to get real. Pray like it's oxygen, break your addiction to comfort, worship like your life depends on it, and link arms with people who will walk this narrow road with you. This is how you stop surviving and start living. This is how you walk in the Spirit, and this is how you become a threat to everything trying to keep you small. If you want, I can also expand it to cover all 5 keynotes in one strong, unified piece. Would you like me to write that next? Great. Here's an expanded version combining all 5 keynotes. Pray like it's oxygen, not an accessory. Kill comfort before comfort kills you. Fight your battles in worship. Walk in community, not isolation. And stay humble, stay dangerous, into about 600 words written in a raw, punchy style without headings. Walking in the Spirit is not for the casual or the careless. It's for the hungry, the surrendered, the ones who've decided they can't afford to live one more day on their own strength. It starts with prayer, not as a ritual, but as oxygen. You don't wait until you're suffocating to take a breath, and you don't wait until your world falls apart to pray. Prayer becomes the rhythm of your life, the place where you pour out your heart and draw in His power. It's not about polished words or spiritual performance. It's about raw, real connection. You cry out when you're desperate. You listen when you're confused. You give thanks when you're blessed. Prayer keeps you awake to God's presence when everything else tries to dull your spirit. But you can't stop at prayer if you're still clinging to comfort. The life God calls you to will not always feel safe, easy, or convenient. And that's the point. Growth never comes from the places where you feel in control. It comes when you step into what stretches you, when you fast, when you give sacrificially, when you obey even when it's costly. You break the grip of comfort and make room for God to move. Too many believers are sleepwalking through life because they're addicted to what's easy. But easy never made anyone holy. You have to kill comfort before comfort kills your fire. And when the battles hit, and they will, you don't fight with anxiety or fear. You fight with worship. Worship is not about music or mood. It's about warfare. When you lift your hands in praise, you are reminding your heart who's king, and you're reminding the enemy he's already defeated. Worship realigns your vision. It pulls your eyes off the storm and back onto the one who commands the wind and the wave. It's easy to praise when life is good, but when you praise through pain, through confusion, through pressure, that's where chains start breaking. That's where the Spirit moves with power. But you were never meant to walk this road alone. Isolation is a breeding ground for defeat. You need people in your life who will challenge you, sharpen you, call you out when you're drifting, and call you up when you're settling. Community is messy, yes. It's inconvenient, yes. But it's God's design. Lone wolves get devoured. We're called to walk in the Spirit together, to carry each other, to pray for each other, to challenge each other. If you want to grow, you need people around you who aren't impressed with your image, but care about your soul. And through all of this, remember,